What happens when AI exceeds human intelligence? To clarify, for most things.
Yeah. See, I've made a point over the last couple of sessions I've done with staff of making the point that if we don't provide that feedback, AI will eat itself because garbage in, garbage out, right? And if you put garbage in, you get garbage out, and then you feed that garbage back in, and you keep doing that, and you don't improve it, and you don't give it any feedback, and you don't tweak it, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse to the point where it'd be completely useless. So
Yeah.
People talk about technology and robots and taking control from us, and that's never going to happen as far as I'm concerned. We might give it away, and we might say, I'm very happy for the AI to do, like, I'm very happy for the AI or for the technology, I should say. I'm very happy for the technology in my house to turn the kettle on for me. Because I've got a device. I can ask it to turn the kettle on. By the time I get downstairs, it's boiled. Quite happy for that. It's not a big deal. Okay, if Amazon or whoever learn how many cups of coffee I have off the back of that, well, fair play to them. I don't really care. If it means I get cheaper coffee, fantastic. But there are other things that I wouldn't be happy to give away, and I think that's where we've got to find our own level, if you like. What information are we prepared to share and what aren't we? And that's going to be different for different people and different use cases as well. So I think as individuals, we've got a responsibility to be thinking about what are we prepared to sacrifice or give away. Because it's like anything, if you're going to use a free tool, right?
What do you mean by giveaway exactly in this context?
So, for example, if you're going to use ChatGPT 3.5, okay, you are giving away potentially information to be used to train the model.
Yeah, but I mean, that's only by design, though.
Yeah,
You can turn that off.
you can turn that off, but essentially, for the vast majority of people who aren't going to know, they'll just go, yeah, no, I'm giving this information away. I'll write me a letter about, I want to reduce my, I don't know, my energy bills or whatever. You soon realize you're starting to give away information there because free tools are basically, there's a cost everywhere, right?
Yeah. They say you're the product if you're not paying.
Exactly. I can't remember
something like that.
Yeah, something along those lines. Whereas as you start paying for things, you start to enter into the realm of now you've got a little bit of control, but there's also then the element, okay, well, what do you pay for? Because we've already said, right tools for the right job. Does that mean you need 7 or 8, 9, 10 different tools that you pay for? And before you know it, you're up to, £200 a month because you're paying a little bit for this, a little bit for that. And if you're in a big organization that can afford to do that, great. But if you're working on your own, you might be the at most in need of that AI support because your resources are at minimum. You really need to maximize your time, and you can very easily fall into the trap of signing up for various different things and ending up being no better off as a result of it. So I think we've got to be conscious of what we're prepared to share, what we're prepared to contribute. I think I don't see it ever being a robots take over the world kind of situation.
Well, let's say they don't take over the world, but if they are able to outthink most people in the same way that somebody is going to doing a PhD somewhere who's going to be able to outthink me 10 times that, because that's the stated goal of OpenAI, right? But the idea is that it's a machine that can outthink most humans about most things most of the time.
Yeah.
And probably come up with stuff that we haven't been able to come up with ourselves.
That's incredibly exciting at the same time.
Very exciting. But I suppose the question is, do humans become pets to AIs at some point?
I mean, I look at my sausage dog, and I sometimes I think that's not a bad life.
Yeah.
Lay in the sun, get fed, do what you want to do, get some attention when you want it, chase something.
If all your needs are met, does it matter that you don't actually have control.
That brings it round to what makes you happy,
Mm.
and what makes you feel fulfilled. And if you are fulfilled, does it matter if everything that you know everything in your life is to a certain extent automated or taken care of by somebody else, and you don't have to worry about it? I mean, I can imagine, particularly like certain people, the opportunity to have AI manage your finances for you, absolutely fantastic for people who really can't do it. You know,
Well, not even if you can't do it. I mean, if it can do it better than you can do it without you having to think about it.
yeah, but I'm just thinking about, I'm going back to, my mother-in-law. She had no way of managing her money for probably the last 10 years of her life. She just wasted it. And that was, obviously, we didn't have a diagnosis at that point. But if we'd have been able to say, hold on a minute, let's have some form of regulation on your account that is going to go, it's 5 o'clock in the morning. Why are you buying cheese? Don't buy cheese. That would have been so helpful in helping us, and it would help the medical profession as well in terms of spotting patterns of behaviors that potentially could lead to earlier diagnoses, that potentially could lead to, less kind of tragic circumstances. But then you've got the flip side of that as well, that if we keep making people better and we keep making people live longer, then that puts a strain on NHS or resources wherever you happen to be, but also populations in general, prisons, the whole lot. At some point, you're going to get to the point where you've got to do some balancing of the books. And that's not an easy conversation to have with anybody, is it? That's a deep philosophical kind of, at what point do we say, or should we say, for example, okay, well, our prisons are full, so how do we empty some of those out? Do we just build more? Do we empty the ones we've already got? Do we part empty them? And I had a really good conversation with my daughter yesterday, about the death penalty, because she was asking,
Keep it light with the children.
absolutely, why are we suddenly in a situation where all of our prisons are full? And we talked about it, and got into the fact that, well, going back in generations, they wouldn't have been full, because a lot of these people would have been, killed, for want of a better word, as part of the justice process, and still are in some countries in the world. And we had a really deep conversation around whether that was right or not. And obviously the issues around, misrepresentation and incorrect, like judgments, and people being found guilty when they weren't, and later, developments in science and forensics, meaning that they were later cleared. But ultimately, we've either got to change the system and redesign it to be fit for purpose, or we've got to find a way of making the capacity meet the demand. And that's not an easy conversation to have. So I always find myself very conflicted with talk around like medical and all those kind of things, where we talk about elongating life, because at the same time, that's then putting extra demand. And also, what about quality of life as well? Because at the same time, we're having, there are conversations going on about, having the choice of, assisted dying and things like that. That actually, might that become AI assisted down the line?
Ooh, okay.
That goes wrong, in that, you've got a system set up that when you get to this point, you say this and it delivers enough drugs to,
Ooh.
and then, and then you head down a whole different ethical kind of. So actually, who assisted you? Because obviously, in the UK at the moment, assisted dying, if you assist somebody, that's a crime. But if it's an AI that's assisted you, who's responsible for that? A little bit like car insurance, self-driving car, and you have an accident with it. Actually, whose fault is it?
Because if you generate something with ChatGPT now, you own the copyright to what comes out of it because you provided the input. So I wonder if it's the case that if you have some sort of assisted dying AI machine, are you responsible? Because you put the input in to say, yeah, at this point, I want you to push the button, as it were.
These are all really
Oh, wow.
important conversations, aren't they? You know, that
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about this.
no, and you know, and 5 years ago, no one would have been thinking about this.
No.
And 10 years ago, people would have laughed. Like, 50 years ago, we didn't even have hot showers.
Yeah.
And everyone would have gone, hot water coming out, and what? And you can have a shower with hot water? No, that'd be ridiculous. You know,
I'm sure somebody must have had a hot shower 50 years
somebody
ago.
might have done something.
It
Maybe
can't have been that unusual.
a tank on the roof, and it happened to warm up.
Yeah, quite
I mean, this
possibly.
is all right, you know. But yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, that the speed that things are moving along, quite often our processes and our systems don't move anywhere near the same speed, and therefore
Yeah.
we end up with massive loopholes and massive problems because we're not dealing with systems that are fit for purpose, because we're not
Yeah.
we're not prepared to make the change quick enough, because everyone wants change, but nobody wants to make the change, right?
Yeah. But also, you always get into this situation where the people making the laws don't understand the technology. The sort of people you elect are not going to be particularly great at, at understanding technology, or they probably wouldn't be in that job.
No, exactly. And when you look at, I don't want to go political at all, but when you look at, what's required to become a member of parliament, qualifications aren't high on that list of.
Yeah, it always amazes me. Yeah, that there's no test to be in a position like that.
You're in charge of defence today, but tomorrow we're putting you in charge of the health service, and then 3 months later, I mean, obviously, if you're in charge of education, quite often it's next day you're in charge of something else or whatever. But but yeah, that people just chop and change, and I don't have a problem with that as long as there is a constant within the system. In that, okay, you're heading it up, but you've got a constant body that is advising you and giving you the right information. But if you have no knowledge, how do you know they're advising you well? And that comes back to that unconscious competence, kind of conscious incompetence balance of, actually, if you have no idea, if you're in that unconscious incompetence, I've taken over being in charge of the National Health Service because I'm Secretary of State for Health or whatever. This is what my advisors tell me, so I'm just going to say that on a news broadcast. Are you worried? Probably not. Blissful ignorance.